I gotta pause because I pee so bad. I'm
my
just gonna let it roll. If you want to talk bad about me, you can do it.
Yeah, so Lieutenant Santano, I mean, probably the first masturbatory experience I ever had. I think we all were there, you know. Straight boys would have, you know, someone like Pamela Anderson, but I think any person attracted to men would have Lieutenant Santano from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I did kind of let the cigarette sit in my mouth. I also think Dick Tracy's kind of like that, where everyone's just got an unlit cigarette hanging off their lips. You know, I think this just brings up a lot of issues with my father. Alan Cumming, sometimes when he's got his hair slicked down in a certain way, it's kind of yellow, and I suspect I want to Google, like, does Alan Cumming smoke? Is that a thing? Now, that being said, I do prefer the UK version of Traitors, which is hosted by Claudia Winkleman, who is just an icon in and of herself. The reason I prefer that one is because it's regular people and not reality stars, because I'm not a reality star fag. I'm a working class fag. So all that tape, I want to say, was great. You're going to love that when you go back to it.
This is the part where the overture starts and the big old spaceship comes over, but in podcast form.
Imagine all these words you're speaking at a slight angle, pivoting away from you.
Camera. Welcome to Your Inner Child's an Idiot, the podcast where we look back on things from our childhood and see if they're any good to begin with. My name's DJ.
And I'm Damon.
Today we have a very special guest, Damon.
Yes, we do.
We have
Tell me everything right now. Pretend I am the audience and tell me now.
You're the form of the audience today. From the Resistance broadcast, from Nerdy and Nice, we have Lacey Gilleran. Hello, Lacey.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
You said special, and I was like, not really, but okay.
We have just a guest, everyone.
I'm
just a normal guest.
A lot of pressure to be real special.
Lacey, you're here because we're just a couple of white guys, and no white guy on the planet has opinions about Star Wars, so we need someone with opinions about Star Wars.
You would think. I'm pretty sure the demo is still like 80% white dude for Star Wars.
I'm pretty sure.
But yeah, no, I love Star Wars. Obviously, that's my main podcast, Resistance Broadcast. I've been doing it for almost 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
7 or 8 years, yeah. So I guess I picked the right episode to come on. Unless you're talking about Labyrinth, then I'll definitely come on.
Already covered. But
sorry, been done.
Just slide those facts in as well into your conversation.
Go ahead. There's a lot of crossover.
Get it out of your system.
I don't have any facts per se, but I've been hyped that they're making another one.
Oh, yeah.
Although I'm a little hesitant on Robert Eggers because I've heard people have very strong opinions about him, and he's the one that's writing and directing it. So we'll see how it goes, but oh my gosh.
And Willem Dafoe is going to play that little worm at the very beginning, that cockney worm.
At the very beginning. He plays both of the door knocker puppets. He plays both of them.
Why don't you come in for a cup of tea? I'm like, how is she getting in there? How is
He's not worried about that. He's just being polite. He's English.
I know.
So we're going to talk about the Star Wars OG. Star Wars, but the fourth? The first, but the fourth. You know how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so part of the reason, I have a secret, Lacey. Part of the reason that we want to do here is that kind of everybody's seen Star Wars in our generation at least, and everybody kind of brings their own baggage, their own history with it. And we just want to mix it up a little bit. Just get someone who's got you have in-depth knowledge. A lot
of baggage.
You have so much baggage that we want to triple the baggage in this episode. But I feel like you bring a knowledge of the Star Wars realm such as it exists today and has existed that we do not. And I feel like they'll benefit the listener and me, and to a lesser extent Damon, because he doesn't really listen half the time.
Well,
I'm doing my taxes over here.
How did you first come to Star Wars? Was it this first film, or where did you come into the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, I got into the Star Wars films through the original trilogy, which is hilarious because a lot of people on the internet are like, what'd you get in? Force Awakens? Actually not. Original trilogy started with New Hope. I do love The Force Awakens, though.
I do too.
And it's a pretty basic story. I was at this regional grocery store called Stu Leonard's, which is like a dairy store here in the Northeast, and they have animatronics, and it's like a big
what?
Yeah,
I'm imagining Chuck E. Cheese, but with produce.
Yeah, Basically, they have a banana that
finally.
sings, avocados that sing. They just added a bunch of new ones. They had Twinkie the Kid that like they got rid of, but then they brought him back. It's like this whole
What is
drama.
this place called? I need to go to this promised
Stu
land.
Leonard's. Farm
Stu
Fresh
Leonard.
5 is the band of like milk cartons that sing. They have it on Spotify if anybody's interested. My daughter loves
Go
it.
check that out.
What?
Put that in your daily mix.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not talk about Star Wars anymore. We're going to schedule a road
This is the
trip.
Stu
We're going to go to
Leonard.
Stu Leonard's.
They
I'm going to
have some in
experience
New
this for
Jersey.
myself.
You know what's funny? Every time I tell this story, John, my co-host, laughs because he's like, "You should be sponsored by them because the amount of times you plug them." And I'm like, you know what? They should sponsor me. No. So I was there with my parents, and they used to have this like kind of movie section towards the cashier area, which is now Florals.
Yeah, Kroger had the movie section for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
remember
and
that.
it was the three VHS set blue one.
yeah.
I think it's the special edition one. I have it somewhere in my messy office, but I saw it has Darth Vader on it, and I turned to my dad and I was like, "What is this?" And he was like, "Oh, it's Star Wars." And I was like, "I want this." And he was like, "Okay." I was like 6 or 7. And so
Just seeing the box set was enough.
Yep.
Like having
Darth
no
Vader.
story
Yep.
knowledge, just
Yeah.
like, this is it.
yeah. So
Good character design right there.
It's
mhm.
true.
And
called bravery.
which is why I went into marketing, you know. I was like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
is such good marketing at 6
They
years
got
old."
me.
So I watched it from there, and I just was hooked. And it's funny because you hear stories, and everybody, like you said, has their own personal kind of connection with it and how they got into it. And they're like, "Oh, my father showed it to me, my parents, my uncle, my brothers, whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, I saw it in a grocery store, and I was just like, this is mine now." And that's kind of how I've gotten into a lot of things throughout my life. And
Yeah.
I remember some of my closest friends have always been like, to my parents, who are Sharon and Bill, they'll be like, "Yo, Sharon, Bill, how'd this happen?" And they'll be like, "We don't
I don't
know. It just did organically."
I just had $6.99 that day, so I bought the
yeah, which now would be like $67.35.
$4,000. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I fell in love with it from Luke Skywalker wanting more out of life. And I know I'm speaking from a 6-year-old point of view right
I
now.
was going to ask how old you were at this point. Yeah.
6 or 7, but I was a middle child. So like to
Okay.
see this hero wanting more, like feeling like there's something else out there for him. And I just remember running around my backyard, pretending I was Leia's daughter at the time, going on missions for her.
Oh, wow.
I had the soundtrack for Return of the Jedi. I somehow got it. I don't know how, like now that I think about it. I think I just like found it in a bin somewhere for like at a garage sale.
Oh, nice.
We got to
good
get rid of
pull.
this junk.
Yeah. And yeah, I became obsessed. And I remember I was really excited for The Phantom Menace to come out because I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, new movies is so exciting." It was 99, so not to date myself, but I believe I was in like 5th or 6th grade. I was so hyped, and my dad took me.
Me too. I
and-
was also in 5th or 6th grade. I
Yeah,
believe, right?
yeah.
DJ, you and I.
Yeah,
both
right.
of us?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. Well, some people, it goes either way. They're like, "Oh, you're old," or they're like, "Oh my God, you're so young. Stop talking like that." So
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
funny. The
99.
generations now. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So my dad took me, and I remember I loved the pod racing. I thought it was so fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great popcorn movie, great time. Didn't think anything of Jar Jar. Wonderful experience for me. And I left, and I turned to my dad and I said, "Where was Luke Skywalker? Like where
Right.
did
I
he
don't
go?"
understand. what's
Like
going
I
on.
totally didn't understand it, which at the time, you know, my dad's like, "Oh, he's not in this one." I don't think he even fully understood, because if you ask him now, he like has no idea what's going on with anything. But it's funny to think of now, because when I try to talk to other people about like what's going on in Star Wars, they'll be like, "Is Luke in this? I don't what?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
he's always the through thread
Yeah.
to like
Yeah.
where Star Wars is. So it's fun to talk about the original trilogy because, I mean, he is the story. He's the hero.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
He's
Damon
the
did-
genetic material that follows all the way through
Yeah.
all 9 movies is this family.
And even
Yeah,
when we
but I-
tried to get away, we had to come back.
I know. Palpatine's the worst thing for me. Not even Luke. It's Palpatine. I'm like, get that guy out of here. Can we not? Can we not do this
Just
again?
once.
He's
Somehow
dead.
he returned.
Yeah. But I did love the whole Luke thing. Big fan of him. There being a princess, and she like didn't really take crap from anyone.
Yeah.
She was just
Yeah.
like tough.
Rough and tumble.
Loved that. And it was the first instance I've ever seen that in my life, was that she was like, "I don't need to be saved by you. I'm going to grab the gun myself."
I just need you to open the door so I could leave. Thank you.
Yes, which kind of set the tone for my love of certain characters growing up. Like I was a huge fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer after this, like going into fourth and fifth grade. Like I dressed up as her for Halloween and it was very inappropriate. I was wearing like short skirt, leather boots, leather long jacket in like fifth grade. I don't know why my mom let me leave the house. I wasn't even allowed to have a steak at school because it's like, inappropriate and a weapon. So I just kind of looked like a
I
baby
went to food
prostitute.
and I was like, what are we talking about here? What just happened?
You're not following the lore of Buffy the Vampire Slayer when she opens a steak and ale steakhouse.
Chris Buffy's.
But the big thing too was the creatures. So like the puppets.
Oh yeah.
Jabba the Hutt, the different animals, droids, stuff like that is what I really fell in love with Star Wars and continue to all the time kind of be like, where are all the aliens? Because I feel like sometimes they forget that that's an important element of Star Wars itself.
It's a thing that needs a balance though, and I think they go both ways where they like kind of forget that you're supposed to have like creature feature like little creatures, and then sometimes they're like, here's 11, and you're like, okay, now you still need to write a story of
creature
some sort.
features. Love that. Keep that.
Keep that. Use that. Damon, where did you come to Star Wars? Or
funnily enough, I mean, I was similarly when those VHSs that Hooked You came out. That was like a big deal, and I remember I bought them for my brother as a Christmas present, whatever year that was. I think it was 95 or 96, maybe, when those VHSs came out. The purple,
96,
red,
97,
and blue ones.
Yeah.
But my first memory of Star Wars is I had hand-me-down sheets. Empire Strikes Back hand-me-down sheets.
Yo, you keep those? They're probably worth money now.
No, I was just thinking about that this morning. I was like, damn it. But I was laying on these characters. I did not know who they were. And so I was just like, whatever. It's some movie my brother liked. And when we got those VHSs, one day I was like, well, I'm going to sit down. One weekend I was like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch these 3 movies. Because I had a lot of Star Wars nerd friends who were really into Star Wars. I'm like, guys, can't we talk about Gandalf some more? And they're like, who? And I'm like, oh, well, just wait a few more years and you'll know who I'm talking about. But I finally watched that, and it was very fun in Empire Strikes Back, where I was like, hey, it's that little puppet guy. I know him. He was on my sheets. So that was thrilling. And I really liked that original trilogy. And when I was a senior in high school is when the prequels started coming out. That's when Phantom Menace came out. I remember Cade Kerr, who was in band, he had a Darth Maul necktie.
Oh,
and we were like, this guy's going to be around for all 3 movies. And I remember there's a big Darth Maul, like, everyone was like, this guy's so awesome. He's going to be around forever.
So cool. He was so awesome. He was in all the marketing promos and everything.
Yeah, they really went all in on him marketing-wise.
One of my favorite, which is like, honestly, typical Lucasfilm, that they kill off the cool guy before he gets any type of like fully like come to fruition.
Right, it is kind
moments.
of a Boba Fett thing, like dump him.
Yeah. One of the funniest moments I've ever had with the podcast myself is we had fans write in like their favorite memories from the Phantom Menace or like going to the movie theater. And someone told this story that they got there and some guy was like decked out Darth Maul, like full face, doing like the lightsaber tricks in the front of the theater, like total hype up the crowd. And then they said after the movie was over, they go to leave. The guy's sitting in the chair just silent, kind of looking at the ground.
Oh, no.
Poor guy.
This guy was so hyped. He was like, this is going to be my character. Which, by the way, is one of the best things about Star Wars is everybody has like their character. Like, that's my guy.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It was just so funny, the story that this person told. They were like, and then he was there. And you could just tell that like they'd broke him.
He spent like all afternoon like gluing all those tiny horns around his head.
He's the villain. You could see that probably he's going to be defeated, but also like you thought he was going to last at least
a second.
To the second movie.
Yeah. Tell us that you're related to one of our heroes. Isn't that how this usually goes? It is funny that we alluded to Boba Fett, because I remember knowing from my Star Wars friends that they were like, this guy's awesome. And I remember him even on my sheets, on those Empire Strikes Back sheets. I'm like, this guy seems serious. And then I watched, the first 15 minutes of Return of the Jedi. I'm like, did he have like 4 lines in this whole trilogy? What is this guy?
He's a chump. He was a chump until the prequels came out. And then everyone's like, yo, he's so sick. Look how sick he is. His dad's awesome. And then he came back obviously later in the sequel trilogy or after the sequel trilogy, really. Wait,
Yeah,
hold on.
he gets his own
Timeline-wise.
show, right?
It's not the sequel trilogy. It's after Return of the Jedi, but it's in the sequel era of stuff Disney
Right.
has done.
I feel like Doc Brown when he has to like explain the
It's like a
different
red
timelines of
string.
1985.
Where does Ocarina of Time come in this? That's where
But then they redeemed him. He was pretty awesome in the new series, and like we was doing the knee rockets from the action figure with John Favreau was kind of responsible for that with the Mandalorian. But yeah, no, I have never liked Boba Fett. I'd never liked Mandalorians before the new show. John and I would call them Mandaborians. Like they're not interesting
Nice.
whatsoever.
like that.
Now I do want to pick your brain about this because
Sure.
he was already, I mean, I remember going into watching them in the mid 90s knowing that people loved Boba Fett. Was it just like the marketing around like
It's a
the
costume.
Kenner
It's a
figures?
cool costume.
I mean, it's a good costume, but it's not that good a costume.
So the hype around Boba Fett in general with most people from, people like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni who've talked about it, who are in Lucasfilm, George Lucas, all the way down to like fans like us that have talked about it.
Mhm.
My understanding is that because he was an action figure that you had to send in for, so there was some type of personal touch there of getting him. And then also the fact that there wasn't a lot of information around him. So
Yeah.
you could make up your own fan expectations of this guy's so sick. Like he's definitely like an alien underneath there. Like he's this big.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then they went into like what the truth was, and it's actually not as cool.
I think that's a good example of like both Boba Fett and to some extent Darth Maul, where it's like sometimes looking closer doesn't give you more; it gives you less.
Well, that's why nobody knows anything about Yoda. Like they've done a lot about Yoda, but from my understanding with George Lucas, he said when he sold Star Wars tier, because he didn't really fully give it up. That kind of ate him up inside, giving that.
I mean,
up,
the pictures of him signing it, it looks like a man defeated. I'm like, what happened? It's like, I wanted to make these last 3 movies.
just like
Yes.
moving in his suit
And they
made
gave
of trillions
him-
of dollars.
Right, exactly.
Well, the thing is he wrote a treatment for 7, 8, 9
Uh-huh.
and gave it to Disney. And was like, "Here's my treatment to continue the films." And they were
They're
like,
like, no, we saw the prequels. We're good. Thanks.
"They
appreciate
they
it.
We're going
just
to give this
threw
to
him
an
out.
intern. He's going to take really good care of it.
They just threw him out.
Your scripts are going to go to a farm upstate. They're going to be super healthy and happy. Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna be so happy."
So I was born in 82. So we missed like, I think most of us that are kind of Damon and my age are like learned from like older cousins or brothers or sisters or whatever, or friends that were like cool older people that were like into Star Wars. I kind of,
You're
the
born
Star
the year
Wars,
my friend, my podcast mate John was born.
yeah, I feel like Star Wars was like the Beatles to me, where I've always like respected it, but it's kind of always been a little bit at arm's length. And then
makes
because
sense.
when I was a kid, it was like the first thing I saw was like the Ewoks cartoon, and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
these little guys, fuck, this is awesome. And then I saw Return of the Jedi. I saw all out of order, and I didn't care. It was just like cool robot, little teddy bear man beating up stormtroopers. Like, this is awesome. And then I watched all of them, and I was like, cool, I'm into it. And then I was like, oh no, you guys over there are super into it, and I don't understand what's going on. And it wasn't until when they re-released the original trilogy and Lucas added all the crazy shit to it that was the first inkling, like as a teenager, because that was what, the like 98,
Yeah,
97,
97, 98. Yeah.
that was I was like, oh, this is not better, this is bad, these are bad choices. And it made me think someone who was like a crazy respected person, that at least to my mind, like George Lucas was like this iconic figure even then, just because Star Wars, the original trilogy and stuff, even though all that stuff had happened, Ewoks, the droids cartoon, the Christmas special, all the stuff that like you can just sort of forget about, that you don't forget about now because the internet lasts forever.
Oh, they're terrible.
Yeah, they're atrocious. But I didn't know about any of that. I didn't care. And
the whole holiday special thing where people were like, "This is so good." I'm like, "No, it's not. You're just saying that to like be cool." Like,
It's
I
just
get
like
it.
I'm happy that B. Arthur is part of Star Wars canon, but it doesn't make it
no.
good.
It's like
And then, like,
reverse
someone had me
contrarian,
watch the Ewok adventure one recently. A friend was like, "Can you come on my podcast and do a watch along?" And I hadn't seen it forever. And I watched it and I'm sitting there, I'm going, "Oh my God, this is so bad." This
It's
is
very
so
bad.
terrible.
Was there an Ewok cartoon and an Ewok live action thing?
Live action.
Because I do
Yep.
remember a live action one with like a blonde
Caravan
pencil-haired
of
kid.
something? I forget what it's
Okay.
called. That's how
I had-
important it is in my brain. I was like, get
Yeah,
this
you're
out.
like, I don't even know. I had a toy box that had the Ewoks on it. That's the main thing I remember.
Okay.
That was where
Yeah.
the toys went.
I love
Yeah,
the Ewoks. My favorite is Return of the Jedi. I love Return of the Jedi. It is.
I do love a happy ending
I do too.
for
I
a story. Don't be gross, Damon. Stop it.
It's my favorite Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi, and I will fight to the death anyone that's like, that's such a corny
Wow.
movie. It's
I am
so
surprised
good.
that it is hated as much as, I mean, maybe not hated, but it always sort of comes in with like a note of disappointment when Star Wars fans talk about it.
Yeah,
What is
that
that?
first segment of Jabba's palace is like perfection. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong from the moment that Luke Skywalker shows up and he's wearing black, and you're like, oh, snap.
Yeah.
He's bad. And then
He's
you're like,
bad
he's
now.
choking pig guys. Like, what is happening right
He's
now?
got that Anne Murray haircut now.
Loved it. I liked the crisscross collar. Ugh, just so good.
This is now a Star Wars fashion podcast?
Yes, it's just no, but everything about it, like the beats between the characters and the saving on the sand barge, like the big moments, even including the Boba Fett moment, which is chump death, like total chump. He
Total
gets
chump
eaten and the thing burps.
Yeah.
Like, come
It's a
on, guys.
joke. It's a joke moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's perfect. I think the ending with the father being like, tell your sister she was right. I don't know how I feel about Luke and Leia being brother and sister still. Like, I feel like that was, George admitted he was like, that was like a late ad because they make out in like the second movie. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Doesn't feel like that was written in.
but yeah, no, I mean, most people say that Empire's their favorite, and Empire
Right.
is like one of the best movies ever made. And that's fine. People like the darker movies and the kind of, I don't know, I guess not as fun as Return of the Jedi.
It's a little-
Return of the Jedi is a blast. And then at the end,
Yeah.
you're like, I could do anything walking out of this movie. I'm in such a good
Yeah.
mood. I could take on the Empire. I could do anything because we're going to win.
Well, I feel like that, like the first movie too, where there's even though it had a sequel, it has an ending. You know,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
the Empire Strikes Back, they knew they were making a third one, and it's like it's half a book.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like it's
Empire
hard.
is all the good guys are sucking right now. And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And they're like, no, but just come back later. And you're
Yeah,
like,
So
come
it is
back.
a perfect 2-act structure, like that. It ends with them. If I do have a criticism of Lord of the Rings, one of them is that the second movie ends a little too happily for me. That the battle is won and that everyone's feeling like, I mean, it's not cheery or anything, but everyone seems to be in like a good space. Like Frodo and Sam have gotten out of their dire strait, and they won the battle at Helm's Deep. But it's a little too hopeful. You
too
should
neat.
be at your worst right now because it's the end of Act 2.
see, one of the reasons I love Star Wars is because the good guys always win at the end. I mean,
Yeah.
up until recently, where it seems like Filoni, who's heading up creative there, is like, oh, you want to cry? Cool. Like, let's have you cry all day. Let's make you very sad about Star Wars right now. Because the most recent project that they did, Skeleton Crew, was an absolute joy to watch. It was
Oh yeah, I saw that you posted that you were liking it.
Goonies, Star Wars, like it was so fun, and they had so many good creatures, and it was just one of those shows that it felt Star Wars, but it wasn't hitting you over the head like, this is the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
Remember this character from
mythology.
3 episodes ago and this
Yeah.
book one time. It's here now. Like, you could just go in and enjoy it. And that's what the Mando show was the first season, The Mandalorian. And then they started to get like all these kind of,
Like
Filoni
threads
got his
and-
hands in
yeah.
it and then was like, let's add this character and let's do this and that. And it's fine because Luke Skywalker comes back in the second season. Spoiler alert.
I knew that.
Wow.
And I sobbed. I straight up sobbed. I didn't think I would. It was at 3 in the morning, whenever it came out at that time, because they switched it now. It used to come out at 3 in the morning, and I didn't have children at the time, so I was like up watching it. I was straight up crying. I was standing up. It was like the Super Bowl for me. My team had just won. Luke Skywalker showed up. I was like, this is the best day of my life. And then I had
To take
children.
a baby. Does he take Baby Yoda? Is that right?
He does, and then the payoff isn't there because he comes back immediately.
Yeah. I just feel like I was too
Interessante.
distracted by the like de-aging stuff. Like it really takes me out of it. Because it's
It
like, I know
was
Yoda is
very-
old and wrinkly, you know?
Yes, it was.
Little joke.
Funny. It's funny, Lily's baby. I get it.
No, but seriously, I can't. Like,
Oh, I thought you meant with Luke. It took you out
I
because
did.
Luke was the deep fake, and a lot of people were turned off by that. I thought that the second time they had Luke in the episodes, I think he did look better than the first time, and obviously that technology is going to progress. And Mark Hamill was involved, which is nice to know. But they could have just used the guy that was the stand-in, and he would have been perfectly fine.
It would have been fine. Yeah, I like just use someone else. It's fine. We've been doing this. We've been doing
I know
acting.
that Mark Hamill is old.
Yeah, I know that this is a person playing a character. Like, I also think it's nice, that Mark Hamill's still around and he's game to be in it. So, like, that's cool.
I've met him twice, and it was two of the best moments of my life.
Oh, wow.
He seems like a nice guy.
He's so sweet. He's so
okay,
nice.
So we have to touch on the original movie since that's what this is actually the intro for.
Oh, right.
So where, like, do you feel like this movie, because you were talking about how Return of the Jedi, you'll defend it. How do you feel this fits in? Because obviously, contextually, you can't have one without the other. So that you have to owe some credit to just this movie and like for starting the whole thing.
For A New Hope, you're saying?
Yeah, A New Hope. Yeah.
A New Hope is what got me into Star Wars. It introduces you to all the characters. You have one of the best introductions with Darth Vader, with the music from John Williams, and Carrie Fisher's weird accent that she does for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
She just gave up on that pretty quickly.
She went to college in England, and now she has an accent when she came back. It's like, okay, lady.
But
are we taking the lift?
Yeah,
That's
stop that. So weird.
Stop talking about my car's bonnet.
But it's just so good. And it's, it represents the time that it came out in like the 70s. It looks very 70s, and they pulled that style into everything else that they do with Star Wars. Like, it remained the same, which I love. They were like, we're going to keep the crazy mustaches and the weird beards and the hair. But no, it was just the story itself is just so hopeful, optimistic, and shows you that anybody can choose to make the right decision to help other people. That's what I always took back away from it growing up, and even now, is Luke decided to help. He didn't have to help. He chose what is the right thing for me to do. I will never give up. I will always help other people. And along the way, he sees Han Solo, who's like, I'm just in it for the money, who obviously has a heart of gold and eventually changes his mind. But the entire time, Luke stays steadfast in his optimism of, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to help other people. I'm going to do what is right. And then you have Princess Leia, who's also doing the same thing. She's also fighting for what's right, but in a different way, obviously. But that always just meant so much to me, because I think, especially now in the world that we've currently are living in, it takes one person to make the right choice. It takes one person to stand up to what's wrong. That can make all the difference. You don't have to blow up the Death Star to be a hero. And I think that this first movie builds on that idea that all the things that occur in Star Wars couldn't happen if each character didn't play their part. If R2-D2 didn't get on the escape pod with C-3PO, he wouldn't have gone to Tatooine. He wouldn't have seen Luke. He wouldn't have done all these things. They now say that Red 5, the droid that blew himself up off the sandcrawler, did it on purpose in one of the books to help R2-D2.
Wait, which is this one of the ones that the Jawas had?
Yeah,
that guy who blows up on his way out?
Yeah, the R5, the little red one, the white and red
Filed
one
away
that
forever.
kind of blows up.
Yeah.
They now say that he did it on purpose to help R2-D2.
Oh, he had a premonition.
Oh, guy.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good message to take away from this. I always thought the fascists dress the coolest, so I'm going to be a fascist. So I feel like my message is winning, but good. I mean, that's a great thought, Lacey. So great job.
What was I going to say? I was going to. Oh no. Oh well, I will say this. One of the things I like, especially about this original trilogy, is that I think George Lucas really sets up iconographically. Here are the good guys. Here are the bad guys. Isn't it so simple? And I think over the course of the next two movies, he starts tearing that apart. And I think I do still believe, now that we're living in a wealth of riches in terms of Star Wars media, that I still prefer when Star Wars is at its most abstract. But I do like that George still wants to pick at these myths that he created and make them a little bit more complex than they seem when you first watch it.
Yeah, I also thoroughly enjoy that the original trilogy, outside of the actual story and characters, etc., of Star Wars, the story of them being made was very much George Lucas being like, I'm doing whatever I want. So you're either on board and let me be the creative genius that I am, or you're not. Oh, you're not? I'm going to fund it myself and figure it out on my own. And
I'll take 15% of the toy sales on the back end. Thank you.
Brilliant businessman. That's where all his wealth came from,
right?
Was the box office, but definitely because of the toys. And one of the guests that we had on for TRB a couple times was the late, great, amazing J.W. Rinzler, who is a historian, worked with George, wrote a lot of the books for George, like about the original trilogy. And he always said that he was like, George wasn't afraid to tell people what he wanted. And some people didn't like that. And he was just like, okay, don't listen to me. I don't care. Just do it. Like, just get it done. And I really appreciate that, given the kind of landscape of where Hollywood and movies have gone, where you have these studio execs who are chiming in. And especially with the recent sequel trilogy, a lot of decisions were made randomly because there were just too many cooks. Cooks totally. In the kitchen. I remember one of the biggest issues I had with the sequel trilogy is that they kill Ben Solo at the end. And one of the executive producers who joined late was like, isn't it so hopeful? I was like, you killed Han and Leia's son, who died to sacrifice themselves for him to live. So no, I wouldn't say that's hopeful. But like, that's a prime example. Like, do you think George would have killed him? No. George would have let him live, and he would have had a happy ending doing whatever he wants to do in the galaxy. That's what George would have wanted. But here we are in the original trilogy, and like, there are instances of sadness and frustration, etc. But he knows at the end it's going to be the happy ending because that's what people want, and that's what George always fought for. He's like, people don't want to leave the movie depressed. Like, come on, people don't want to do that. But I just love that he was always very stern with, I'm the creative. You want to give me money to make my stuff? That's fine. But like, this is my journey. And I think people now take that from him. Like, James Cameron is very much on that same thread of George Lucas, of like, he told a story recently where an executive came into his office about Avatar and was like, this Avatar movie is 3.5 hours long. I'm going to need you to cut off an hour. And James Cameron said, F you, get out of my office. I'm not doing anything to my movie. And the guy was like, oh, all right. And like, just left. And then they made the 3.5 hour, 4 hour.
They're like,
movie.
I would like this to cost.
Cut 3.5 hours out of the last Avatar movie.
James, I would love it.
The second one.
I would love it if this was less than 491 minutes long and $600 billion. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. You're like, okay, well, okay.
But I just appreciate the ability to stick up for what your vision is.
Strong vision. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think sometimes the people that have the money tend to be like, no, you're doing this. And people are like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess the sort of story that's, or maybe this is just in my mind, but I feel like the story that's come out about the prequel trilogy was sort of the idea that George maybe had when to say no to him. But
opposite.
Okay.
You keep going down that path. That's where that leads. That leads to Avatar 3 or whatever we're getting now.
Well, you have George saying no to studios, and I believe in that. But then you also, on that same side, the reason Star Wars is so good is that it was saved in the edit with Marcia Lucas, his one-time wife, who cut a lot of stuff out. So like, one of the famous stories is he showed a first kind of screening of Star Wars to like Spielberg and a bunch of other people, and they were like, this is absolute trash. Like, you need to completely gut this thing. So I appreciate him standing up to the studios, but I also appreciate creatives telling him no. The prime example I give of this is I read a book once about like nonconformists. I think it's by Adam Grant. And he said that one of the craziest things that has ever happened in creativity is that the guy that invented the Segway was never told no. He was just like, people were like, yeah, like Jeff Bezos, whatever, was like, this is going to be genius. This is going to be the transportation of the future. Dude segued off a cliff, and that's how he died. Like,
oh my God.
Yes, he just segued right off. Because nobody told him no. Nobody told him like, hey man, maybe don't segue on a cliff. Maybe the segway's not the right way to go. So
or maybe people don't want to lean forward for hours at a time,
right,
slightly.
Except if you're a mall cop.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a prime example. The prequels is another instance that I agree with you 100%. Nobody told George no. So I applaud him for seeing his vision through. But Attack of the Clones is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. The dialogue is so clunky. That pair scene between Padme and Anakin is so cringy. Like, I hate it. It's just terrible.
Just getting the worst
I agree with you.
out of
it's a matter of having creatives, push back rather than executives and the money guys.
I think it's a balance. I think it's like a formula that's, if everybody could do it successfully, they would. It's really a challenge to get that because someone, these are financial investments. They are like, it is a creative endeavor, but it is a business model too. And so I do think like you need the bean counter to some extent to be like, hey, and those limitations also foster creativity in some cases, like
100%.
Like you don't have an unlimited budget for costumes. So, we used Cottonelle for this thing.
Well,
and
that's
it, like,
why
has this
Boba Fett
look.
is what it is.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
They wanted him to, I think, be a certain type of stormtrooper or something. And they were like, yeah, this isn't working. So then they just made him his own character. Or like the wolf guy in the cantina. A lot of the creatures you see are Halloween costumes they went and picked up. So like
it's like a vampire in the cantina, isn't there? Or some very vampirish looking person.
Yeah. So a lot of creativity also has come out of being budget conscious. And I think that films in general, like even Back to the Future, some of the best work has come out of the ability to be like, okay, you have to get this done now or you're not going to have it. And so then it forces people to be creative. Yeah, I agree with you.
Lacey, thank you for joining us.
You also turn into James Cameron where you just make 17 avatars.
Just make
against our will.
Yeah.
Who was asking for this?
Money. That was where the bean counter came in.
Oh, right. That money was asking for it. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Lacey, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Check out the Resistance broadcast. Check out Nerdy and Nice, her podcast. And we're going to watch Star Wars 4 A New Hope. Do people call it that? Just A New Hope?
A New Hope.
We're going to watch it. Watch along with us.
A&H. Wait, who's Roz?
From Monsters, Inc.
Oh, yeah.
Always watching.
So Doris Grau from The Simpsons.
You mentioned before that you wanted to do a commercial for our Patreon, but only in Jawa voice, I think you said?
I
think that's...
thank you, DJ, for reminding me. I've got a lot going on, a lot of ins and outs, a lot of dinners with diplomats, heads of state, that sort of thing. So I thank you for serving as my PA, which is also one of your roles. I'm not going to do the voice because that's offensive. I'm not going to do the voice.
Okay.
So I'll just say, haba haba. Utini, I'll also say. YourChild'sAnIdiot.com or patreon.com/YourChild'sAnIdiot.
Yeah.
There is a 301 redirect there. Or as they would say, Utini.
I always thought it was tahini, which is a classic condiment, an essential ingredient in hummus.
Well, Jawa's also, I mean, I don't mean to stereotype here, but they love falafel.
Wow.
They love falafel, little tahini dressing on top. Delicious.
Just, gotta be honest here. Everyone loves falafel because it's fried ball of chickpea. What's the problem?
Gimme it.
More topical discussions like this. Extra episodes. Your name in the credits. Patreon.com/YourInnerChild'sAnIdiot. Utini. We are backed.
Hi.
We are backed.
We are backed against a corner.
Excuse me.
And we have to record the latter half of this podcast.
Hold, please.
Yeah.
We are back. We watched Star Wars, episode 4, no, we decided there's a slash in there. Or a dash
in there, yeah.
Anyway, forget the colons. Patreon.
I will not. I'm old fashioned. The older I get and the further we get into these Star Warses, I'm just like, this is Star Wars. This one is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Stop it. You know what I mean? Stop trying to just call it. It's one thing to call it Star Wars A New Hope or Star Wars Episode 4, but there's some people that are trying to just call it A New Hope. And I'm like, get fucked.
Yeah,
I am not going to do that.
I'm not doing that. I think that makes
Or
sense.
even worse, ANH. No.
Well, if you're writing,
No.
I'm fine with that if you're typing. And also, in the context of talking about multiple Star Wars properties, I kind of understand saying A New Hope, because you don't have to say Star Wars. We're only talking about Star Wars things. Now, if you're talking about just movies in general, or if you're on a podcast that reviews things from your childhood or your
I'd
sister's childhood, I guess, in this case. I think it's okay. You know what? I'm going to stand up against bullies like you and say, I'm going to call it whatever I want.
You know what? I like to have strong opinions, but barely held positions. So I'll back down immediately. Yeah, you're right. People should like what they like, including calling things dumb names.
I want to recap this movie because people just haven't seen it, and it's important that they understand what's going on. This is the story of two queer-coded robots who are just dragged into human drama, and they save the day and fight off the evil empire and blow up the Death Star. I think,
and then some people come along with them.
Yeah, eventually.
They get a ragtag group of humans to follow their lead.
Humans and a Wookiee. And,
True, you're right. I apologize. You know what else? I mean, I know this is already derailing us. You know what pissed me off in the prequels, among other things? When they called Anakin a human. I'm like, what? We're just calling them humans.
Yeah. It is one of those things where it's, you can get into it where I think I actually looked this up one time because I got curious just thinking about it. I was like, is the theory, that they are humans and that it's, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, is this a seeding theory?
Oh, like Prometheus. You're thinking like that sort of
stuff. The Earth was seeded by and then someone was like, well, we don't really know because it's a fucking movie, you nerd, which is like how a lot of things, but I'm like, don't get...
You raised the question.
Yeah,
movie?
I mean,
is the movie calling me a nerd, or is it a third party entirely?
I've really lost the plot of who's calling who a nerd at this point, but it is this movie beget, and we'll get into it. But this whole movie does beget a larger world, which is to its credit. I think obvious. It's so obvious. Everything we say about Star Wars is going to be obvious at this point, but it's the bigger world. In as much as it was copied from other movies, yes, but this bigger world didn't exist when this movie came out. And I think it does a really good job in the way that good sci-fi movies do, where you're like, there is so much more here, and I'm not going to show you all of it. But eventually people did just sort of like, through either the novels or future movies, or just like making up stuff and putting on Wikipedia, or like, this little robot is named Plarf, and
I think you can thank the good people at Kenner for naming most of these characters.
Yeah. I think them most nights at dinner. Just apropos of nothing.
Yeah, I think it does I think George Lucas has done a good job trying to sell us on the idea that he had a lot more plan than he did. And part of that is like, I mean, I think he alludes to things that, that he spoke about vaguely enough that he could fill it in later. I'm sure some of this is like in an outline. I feel like the prequels, as flawed as they may be, do fit more or less what happens in these movies, with some qualifiers that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
Usually whenever Alec Guinness is talking, I'm like, what are you saying? But yeah, I think he draws a vague enough picture that super nerds can come in and piece together the rest. It reminds me a little bit of Legend of Zelda. The games themselves are very vague on the history, but you give 1,000 nerds, 1,000 typewriters, or as we call them now, YouTube channels, and they will fill in the rest of this lore and history.
Yeah, I do like it. It helps this movie that you enter in media res, like get the big crawl that kind of tells you what's going on. And I definitely didn't understand the nuances of that as a kid, of what they're like. Oh, there's a rebel, and then there's princess. I'm like, bad guys, good guys, got it. Like
the movie is also like, here, bad guys, good guys.
Here are bad guys, good guys. They were black. This was before black was fashionable. So
true. Darth Vader didn't know how slimming it would look.
Yeah. Lauren pointed out, and this is very true of certainly this movie, but I think Star Wars at large. There's a very thin line between the cool character and costume design and the super dorky character and costume design. Like the Darth Vader is a great example. Like primo character design, like incredible, like
He walks in and you're like, what's this guy's deal?
Very menacing. You take one element away, take that mask away, and like that is the nerdiest shit you've ever seen. Take the cape away, he's just standing there like a guy.
He's got a computer board.
Belly? It only
just on his belly.
Yeah, it only works in concert. And I will say, I think the Stormtroopers are a cool design. They're very dorky in this particular. I think they get better a little bit, like, but they're very like clonking around. There's one scene when they first come in, and there's like one Stormtrooper has like leaning as he runs. It was like you just didn't quite figure out the helmet. And
even as a kid, I laughed the first time I watched it, off the VHSs. I laughed out loud at the Stormtrooper rises out from the bottom of the screen and just goes, "Look, sir, droid." I'm like, this is a comedy. This is nonsense. Just popped into frame like Bugs Bunny. Yeah, we talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it in the intro to this episode or if we've talked about it in the intro to the other two episodes. But I feel like Star Wars works best when it's more iconographic. And I think this movie, crawl aside, which I think even though the crawl is kind of long, I'm like, I can't believe they got away with this. You put it at a 30-degree angle and we all fall for it. That aside, I feel like, that opening shot, as much ink has been spilled about that opening shot. Yeah. I mean, it is very effective at setting up the odds, setting up who the bad guys are, and setting up what a powerhouse they are to overcome. Like instantaneously, you understand, even if you don't have any details right now, you understand stakes and what we're up against. And it's just such a fucking great shot.
It really is. And
has anyone ever noticed that shot before? Maybe they parodied it, perhaps.
In everything ever.
Ever caught that?
We talked about this right before we started recording, but like we are both going to be so tired of our own opinions because it's very well trodden ground, which is why we have avoided Star Wars for this long, because it's like you don't need to hear us talk about Star Wars. But we decided we're going to do it anyway because we wanted to. So we knew our friend Lacey would help us.
I do want to say I was reminded, as I am every time I watch this, how much I love, and I know that not everyone loves him, how much I love C-3PO. I love Prissy.
Yeah.
I love pessimistic. Pissy and pessimistic. Those are my things. Pessimistic. I love him so much. I like almost every line he says. I giggle a little bit. I love him.
I do. I mean, I think R2-D2 is the hero of this story, much in the way that Samwise is the hero of Lord of the Rings. Like they are involved in every element of this and are a big part of why this succeeds. This, at least in this movie, the Empire does potentially.
It is a 50-year-old robot, we find out later.
It does potentially strike back. I don't know when. I don't know how. But yeah, and their relationship is really funny, which is incredible considering one of them just beeps and boops. But it's a very emotive beep and boop. I think
it works. I think Anthony Daniels, his reactions and frustrations with R2 like really sell what R2's personality is.
Yeah.
And
she is a bitch.
She is a bitch. I do love C-3PO wearing the bare midriff in a sandy climate, no less.
Yeah,
that can't be good for all those wires.
That is a choice.
It's got a lot of chafing. But I was like, why would you just have the wires exposed? I do appreciate the sluttiness of the top, but it just doesn't make any sense. I also love, every time I watch this, I love when R2 gets hurt and usually thrown somewhere. He makes a fun sound. And I like it when R2 is scared.
Yeah.
I like it. And now Tyler made a good point, but there was also part of me that's like, shut up. He was like, why would they program the droid to be scared when he's by himself? I'm like, well, shut up, man.
This is the
Get
thing
swept
about
away for once.
This is the thing about droids that's really upsetting if you think about it too much. They are sentient. They have feelings. It's established. That is canon. They have feelings. They have, I guess, to some extent, aspirations, even if they are
They can
service.
be existential. They are often, pessimistic about their chances of survival.
Yeah. And they are in servitude. They are in slavery. It's very upsetting. And then you think now this isn't like there's not hundreds and hundreds, but we see many droids in this movie. And it makes you go like, well, what about that one? What about the little mouse droid that's going around? Is that sentient?
He got scared by a Wookiee.
He got scared.
Maestro you're talking about?
Yeah. And then it makes me go like, what about this one that dies right in front of Luke?
His head exploded.
Yeah. It's just, I don't think this is a new revelation, but this really hit home for me on this one, where I was kind of upset, actually.
Yeah, I think it doesn't bother me so much in this movie, but once we go back to the prequels and then later the sequels, I'm just like, these are 75-year-old robots at this point that have stayed within a family the whole time. How are you treating them so cavalierly? They are like your family at this point.
Yeah.
What in the fuck is wrong with everyone?
Well, especially, it's like the actual mechanics of it, or the like even philosophical mechanics in universe of it is one thing, but like we as humans, well, Earth humans, we anthropomorphize everything. So the fact that you wouldn't like, I say please to Chat GPT. So like, like why isn't there anyone that kind of treats them differently?
Hey, when we're working in the silicon mines, those please and thank yous to ChatGPT will have gotten you a pretty sweet spot. You'll get an extra sodium block at the end of the day to treat yourself with.
This is being recorded, way pre-release, and I assume by the time this comes out, that'll be what it is. And
we're going to be ruled over by C-3PO and R2-D2.
Yeah.
By 2026, I want to say, please, actually, I'd appreciate it if you guys could take over by then.
Let's just let that meteor come. 2032 can't come fast enough. Sorry, what?
I was just going to say, one of the things I like about Darth Vader is that he's not even in charge.
Yeah.
In this movie, he's like second in command.
He's like third. Is he even second in command? He's like,
there's Grand Moff Tarkin, who I love. Peter Cushing. And then it's Darth Vader, right? I mean, above them, of course, is the Emperor.
I guess,
but I assume there's various Grand Moffs and Grand Poffs. And then you have Puffer and
I call him Gam
Moffer,
Gam and
then,
Pop Pop.
And then you have Sith Lord Darth Vader. I call him Meemaw. What can I say? I'm from South Carolina. Space, South Carolina, of course.
Of course.
I love Peter Cushing in this. He has very Mr. Burns energy.
Yeah.
But Tyler said his body just hangs off those cheekbones. I would kill to have cheekbones now, like Peter Cushing, let alone at 75 or whatever age he was in this movie.
He's still alive because I just saw him in the other movie, right?
Yeah, that's right. He was in Rogue One, looking great. Looked more like the Kenner doll of Grand Moff.
That's not actually him. That was CGI. Yeah.
Yeah, no shit. I was freaked out the entire movie. Thanks. He's also briefly in whatever the third prequel movie is, but in there it's a guy in makeup, and they really focus on the cheekbones, and I'm like, dude, that is Dick Tracy villain. Don't do that. You don't have to do that. If I don't see Grand Moff Tarkin in this, I'm not going to be
okay.
Hey, where's Tarkin?
That's so weird. I mean, I understand why. It's because it's like you recognize this actor and it's iconic. But I'm also like, we're presuming that you have millions of people, in this in order to have this force.
16 guys.
Yeah.
The Doge committee came in and just were cutting jobs left and right.
That's why they can afford all those ships. Don't have to pay those huge salaries.
Yeah, Peter Cushing. I also my favorite Peter Cushing moment, among others, but I mean, he after Darth Vader strangles a man during a board meeting, he says, "Enough with this bickering." I'm like, this is assault. We are past the point of bickering.
There is. I think this has been brought up many times, but this is an interesting work environment to think through. I always thought that actually, as a kid too, where that's a very classic villain thing is they're very like, it's how they're bad. They're bad guys. they're like, you idiot. And they're like slapping their second in command. You're always like, how are you staying here? Surely there are other options for you. You have this experience. It's like working. I assume working for the Empire is like working at Facebook. You know, you can like be like, you can get a job anywhere. You work there.
Right.
Just come on
Oh,
in.
yeah. It opens up a lot of doors. I interned at the Empire. I got everyone's coffee, space coffee.
Space coffee.
It was great. The guy who gets force strangled is Richard Laparmentier. Sure, I'm pronouncing that wrong. But I know him best as Lieutenant Santano in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I remember when I watched this for the first time, I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? I was just like staring, like boring holes through my TV. I'm like, I know this man. And he's like in 3 scenes from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
All right,
so isn't that fun? That's a fun little fact there.
I gotta pause because I have to pee so bad. I'm
my
just gonna let it roll. If you want to talk bad about me, you can do it.
Yeah. So Lieutenant Santano, I mean, it's probably the first masturbatory experience I ever had. I think we all were there, you know. Straight boys would have, you know, someone like Pamela Anderson, but I think any person attracted to men would have Lieutenant Santano from Who Framed Roger Rabbit comes in, got that sort of snarl. I think he has a toothpick in his mouth, maybe. It might be a cigarette butt. I feel like that movie is like rife with people having cigarette butts just like hanging out of their mouths. And I think in my head, I thought that that's what you just did. You just had a cigarette butt. But I think that was just, you know, maybe to keep it PG. Although, did they care about that in the 80s? That's a good question. I also think Dick Tracy's kind of like that, where everyone's just got an unlit cigarette hanging off their lips. And when I did smoke, I did kind of let the cigarette sit in my mouth until the rest of my lips dried up. So that one little spot that's still moist fuses with the cigarette, and then you can talk, and the cigarette's just bouncing on there. But it's a lot more dangerous when it's lit because there's literal fire coming out of the stick, rather than like Mandy Patinkin and Dick Tracy playing 88 Keys having an unlit cigarette hanging out of his mouth. You know, I think this just brings up a lot of issues with my father. He used to smoke, although I have no memories of him smoking, but I know he used to smoke, and he's still got a smoker's cough to this day. But I mean, he must have quit when I was like a kid. And we still have pictures of him like in the early 80s with a cigarette, you know, ashtrays everywhere, but I have no memories of him smoking. I know my maternal grandpa also smoked, but again, I have no memories of that. But he had a little bit of the yellowing. You know how people with white hair get a little bit of the yellowing? In fact, I've been watching the Traders US, and Alan Cumming, sometimes when he's got his hair slicked down in a certain way, it's kind of yellow, and I suspect I want to Google, like, does Alan Cumming smoke? Is that a thing? But I keep forgetting to do it, but I should go back to it and decide if Alan Cumming smokes. Now, that being said, I do prefer the UK version of Traders, which is hosted by Claudia Winkleman, who is just an icon in and of herself. The reason I prefer that one is because it's regular people and not reality stars, because I'm not a reality star fag. I'm a working class fag. So that's just who I am. DJ, how'd the piss go?
Great. Speaking of yellow, were you talking about Alan Cumming's jaundice while I was gone?
I was talking about his hair. You know how sometimes when someone who has white hair smokes, it can get a little yellow. If they have like facial hair, it'll get a little yellow around their mouth and sometimes around their hair as well. All that tape, I want to say, was great. You're going to love that when you go back to it. I'm surprised that I could talk continuously while you were gone. But if you tell me, let's do an ad for fucking Patreon, I freeze up.
Do you want to talk about Luke at all?
Nah. Who gives a shit? He died on that salt planet later on. What's the point? Luke. Luke's cute. One of the few times when you can say that Mark Hamill could get it. He's in this one. He's got a little bit of that surfer thing going on. I will say he sort of mismatches his whites. I don't know if it's just in HD. I can tell more, but he's got like a white karate gi on top, like a sort of almost green beige pants on, and then he's got like pinkish white wraps around his leg. I'm like, Luke, you can't be doing this. You gotta get this together.
It's like someone told him there's a white party, and he was like, I'll just see what I can scrounge up.
I'm gonna do a mummy. I don't have enough to get up past my knees. Maybe I could go as a karate fighter. Chop chop.
Karate fighter. things.
And
things
then he's like,
are
is it a
named.
good idea to show up at Diddy's white parties? I'm not going to show up on a list, am I? No, he's good in this. I mean, he's very whiny.
Yeah.
Which we find out later is a genetic trait.
It's a family thing.
I'm not the only person who likes this line, but I was going to go to Tashi Station for some power converters. Oh my God. Nom, 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 nom. I love how fucking whiny it is. But no, he's good in this. I mean, I like that he's a little bit brash. He's a little bit arrogant, but you can tell he's sort of in over his head.
Yeah.
Complete horn dog, willing to fly across the galaxy just to see a girl that he's never met before. Come on. I'm sure there's plenty of nice Tatooine girls.
I never noticed how just like awful this, like how much death he witnesses. Like, I know it's like tough on this planet. They kind of set up that it's a little bit tough, but they don't set it up like this. I mean, not only obviously his aunt and uncle are the big one, but like, there's just all the Jawas he's been doing business with are massacred.
Yeah.
There's
not
people dying left and right,
which they don't.
Which he doesn't. And
I want to say, because like we said in the intro, I watched these first on VHS on no doubt a vacuum tube TV or whatever.
CRT.
It took me a long time to recognize that there were skeletons of Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen. That is fucking harsh, dude.
It's
like
horrifying.
Mars Attack style skeletons lying
also,
outside
like,
their little
crawling out like they had been trying to escape or something.
Like they were on fire. That is graphic.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. And
poor Aunt Beru, she was going to go to the Anne Murray cover band convention later on. Sad. I love that they're just like, okay, you guys are going to be dressed in sort of space bathrobes, and Aunt Beru, just wear what you got. Whatever you wore to the audition is fine.
Just leave it on. It's fine.
Tyler was like, they've got denim on this planet?
It's a space blouse.
It's moon denim, and I wish you'd respect it better.
You see, the French colonized part of... Don't worry about it.
I did like her, that the big collared shirt she had underneath. I loved that nice 70s print. It was like a deep chocolate brown with orange flowers or something on top. And very nice. Loved it.
Space 70s.
Space 70s, of course.
But yeah, I mean, like...
Everyone was smoking. Nixon had just been kicked out of office.
I think the...
Space Nixon.
While this movie is not perfect, it did spend... it's a little... He just kind of pouts that his aunt and uncle were murdered. He moves on pretty quickly. I'm generally like, I'm okay with it because he's a kid. He's kind of like doesn't understand the gravity of everything. I think that, in real life it'd be a little bit more emotional, but this is not that movie. So I kind of understand why they're like, I don't think they were like really thought about it. They're just
I could use an extra beat. Like, come on, you grew up with these people. You can.
I'm more devastated about how undevastated Leia is by her entire planet getting blown up, where obviously she's upset, but then she kind of moves on and is like cracking wise and stuff, which, we all deal with trauma in different ways, but like
relatable. She
gets even less of a beat to sort of process what's going on. And it's more just like the injustice of it. And it's like, also there should be, I imagine, some sorrow like through that.
Jimmy Smits is dead.
Yeah.
Come on. I agree with that. I'm curious because I feel like Princess Leia seems so deliberately countering conventions of this story.
Yeah.
If they, I don't know, maybe not thoughtfully, but didn't give her a beat to be sad or emotional.
Didn't want her to be...
wanted to counter that, maybe.
Grief is a girl emotion.
I think it would be better, right? Crying about dead people is, buck up, kid. Take a lap around the Death Star and let's get back to work. I wonder if they purposefully avoided that. I don't know if it was necessarily the best character choice, but that might have been in their thinking of like trying to push back against, the emotional character. But Luke also not having that just seems like they're just reasons.
Yeah, just trying to get through. And I back to we were talking about Luke in general. You mentioned his whininess, which is a very present straight. Certainly, it gets your attention in the beginning, but I do think that this characterized a little bit less obnoxious, than Anakin does later, because he's a kid and he's just like, I want to go do this thing, and his, he's being protected by his aunt and uncle who know about Anakin's history and stuff like that, and it kind of makes more sense in this context. He doesn't understand the gravity of anything, and then he kind of learns that, like, he immediately, this cool old guy in the desert is like telling him about the Force, and then he's immediately like, I believe in this, like, which I'm like, yeah,
just like a kid would, honestly.
Kid, yeah.
I went to FCA when I was a kid.
Right. People know what that is.
Cool old man comes in with his electric drum kit. Hey,
Alec
kids,
Guinness on the drums.
You know who else fought the Empire? Jesus Christ. Wow. This Ben Kenobi guy's cool.
You mean old Ben Kenobi? From the desert?
Guys, we gotta work on our pseudonyms. We can't just be going by our same last name.
I know, I'm like, Kenobi, maybe Kenobi's just like a super common last name, so he's like, if I just change it to Ben Smith instead of Obi-Wan
But
Smith,
even
no one will know.
Obi-Wan, old Ben Kenobi, like, if you're across like a desert canyon and you scream old Ben Kenobi, I'd be like, did you say Obi-Wan Kenobi?
If anything, you should change the last name. Maybe it's a different culture. Maybe it's like,
I'm Ben Xanthopoulos, so I couldn't possibly be him. Yeah, and I mean, we also find out later that Luke Skywalker's father's name, the man who is searching for him, theoretically, is Anakin Skywalker. So if you just want to look maybe on your home planet for a kid that bears your last name,
check there first.
Start there, at least. It makes sense. I know we're not the only people to say that. I do want to go back to his whininess, just to put a cap on it. I do think I agree with you that I think he also, in this movie, develops from a sort of whiny character into a hero by the time he's doing the thing with the thing on the Death Star and shoots rat hole or whatever.
A lot of times I think, in context, like, that's what bravery is not kind of understanding the gravity of what you're doing until it passes, and then you're like, oh shit. Like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I really like, just to give Mark Hamill additional credit, he's really underrated. I don't know. But I
feel like he's gotten rated now.
He's rated now. And he's working on R2, and C-3PO introduces him. He just goes, hello. I just really like that. I can't believe I'm saying hello to a droid. Racist.
I also like, you now reminded me of one of my favorite 3PO moments, which is, when that one robot's head explodes and no one is bothered. Yeah. They decide to go on 3PO's advice to go with R2-D2, which is nice. Good job, 3PO. Yeah. And he's like, I've worked with him many times. He's really great to work with, or something like that. And then, like, mere hours later, he's like, that R2 unit's always been a problem. Yeah. Literally hours after he, stuck up for him. I just love 3PO so much. I really do.
Yeah, he's catty. He's very catty.
He's such a whiny. Speaking of whiny, he's so whiny. He's so prissy. He's so pessimistic. I don't know why I connect with him so much, but he is great.
I do like it.
Would you like to talk about one of my favorite characters, Princess Leia's English accent?
Just for one scene?
Never returns for the rest of the series, but here it is.
Was it just, did she, because I only noticed it in the questioning scene, and I was like, oh, that's very present.
She kind of has it. She has it when Death Vader. Nah, that's not him.
That wouldn't work.
When Darth Vader comes aboard her ship, and then when she's being interrogated by Grand Moff Tarkin, I thought I smelt your foul stench when I was brought on board. I'm like, okay, Katharine Hepburn, cool it. And those people, I know Katharine Hepburn has a mid-Atlantic accent. She's not English. I know what you mean. Yes. But still, I feel like that's what
Save your
doing.
Letters.
She was doing some sort of like Lauren Bacall type voice in some of those.
Come on, here.
Well, that's more Fay Ray. But not Fay Ray, Mae West. But still, she's doing that thing. No.
Yeah, that was, I know this is now, because I looked it up, a famous thing, but I did not actually notice that ever before in any other viewing until this time. And I was like,
you never noticed her English accent until now?
No, this is the first time I was funny. Like, oh, because, everyone kind of speaks a little bit differently because they're saying, space words or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the Empire is British because it checks out.
Fuck that. That's why.
There's a great Eddie, Susie Izzard bit where
the Susie.
Yeah. Where they talk about the Empire just having that sort of like posh British, like, the rebels, sir, they're here. Very good. I like it. Also, this is what I never noticed before. Every Star Wars fan is listening to this being like, you fucking idiots. I feel very judged, and I want to embrace it. I never noticed
Star Wars fans are notably reasonable. They certainly wouldn't turn on their own franchise for no reason. They certainly wouldn't attack someone on the internet, no less.
Someone
they
with
would
a
come to your house
podcast
and have a reasonable discussion with you.
This is there's blue milk at the table. Luke drinks blue. See, he has a history. People are so mad at The Last Jedi, but he has a history of loving the blue stuff.
It reminds him of home. It's like going to Cracker Barrel and getting the Sunday homestyle chicken. It's just what makes him feel good.
And he pours it from one container to a container the exact same size. Did you notice that?
Well, you want to aerate it. It's kind of like a fine wine.
Okay,
you want to get some oxygen in there, or else, the lactonides and actinides don't agree well with your space stomach.
Okay. You got to take some space lactate, and it's going to be okay.
I think, do you want to talk about, I don't know if he did any other movies after this, but do you want to talk about Harry Ford? Harry? Is that right?
Harry? Yeah.
Harrison?
Harry's son. Ford.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's Norwegian.
Harrison Ford plays a character called Han by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And
don't worry. If you want more information about that character, I've got some great movie recommendation for you.
I like the way he's introduced. Like, we kind of know what he's all about, and he sticks to it. We could talk about character growth. He's in it for the money, or is he? What's interesting is like he basically decides he's really not even in it for the cause. He just likes these people, I think. Which
right. So he would
nice.
Be like what would you say? Chaotic good? Is that him? Is that right? He rolled a 20 on charisma and chaotic good. Is that?
You're kind of mixing a couple things, but yeah. I mean, yeah. It's fine. It's fine.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Let's piss off.
Roll the dice to see if you're going to shoot first or if Greedo's going to shoot first.
Let's just piss off all of the nerd communities at once.
I can take them.
Yeah. No, you can't. Yeah. Did you watch, which version did you watch? I think you can only.
Do I have an option on what version?
I don't think so. The only one I found was like the kind of remastered version. And
whatever that was, there was a lot of like, I kept leaning over to Tyler. I'm sure he enjoyed every moment. I'm like, that's new.
The most ridiculous thing, I mean, there's a couple ridiculous things with the remaster. We talked about this already in the intro, I think, but there's like when Han walks around Jabba and like steps on his head. Just like it's like a Photoshop like lasso tool. Like they didn't even do a good job of like moving him around. I also hate that. I mean, for the obvious reasons. The other thing I hate about that is that Jabba does not look right. Yeah.
He doesn't look like he does in Return of the Jedi. Like, you have what he looks like. Why are you screwing it up? He looks smaller than he should, for one, and he doesn't look. He's like a different color than he is in Return of the Jedi. He's no good.
Such a great setup in Partnership when we see Jabba, because it's like he's just like it's like scary and weird, and obviously.
And you've also only heard like two characters in Return of the Jedi have been alluded to the entire series, and you finally see them, the Emperor and Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah,
and it's such a great. I prefer that reveal over anything. You're just building them up. You're Hannibal Lectering them until you're finally in front of them.
Now, did you find...
Hold on. The other thing that bothers me about that Jabba scene is, like, once you ignore the fact that it looks terrible, and every choice they made was wrong, you'll notice that all the dialogue in it is said by Greedo, sometimes verbatim by Greedo in the previous scene. where he's like,
Yeah.
I can't trust a scallywag or whatever the hell he calls Han Solo, who drops his freight at the first sign of an Imperial starship. I'm like, that's literally what Greedo said 2 minutes ago. You are providing me literally no information that I have not already gleaned.
Yeah.
Pointless.
There's no character development. You get a little bit more of Harrison Ford talking, which is always welcome in this
a little
era.
more swagger, a little more vest action.
But yeah, it didn't do anything for me. Now, Harrison Ford in this movie as Han Solo, I just want to go out on a limb here, and I think I might piss some more people off. He is charming.
Oh yeah, charming and handsome.
Yeah.
You know, he's a bit like a internet atheist in the flight over to the Death Star. He's a bit like just bashing people's religions.
Yeah.
You just met these people 20 minutes ago. But yeah, he's very charming. He's very funny. I mean, what's to be said about Han Solo and Harrison Ford that hasn't already been said? Yeah.
It doesn't get, because this is not just like Indiana Jones, which is like his vehicle. He doesn't get as much to do, and he doesn't get as many. But you see, he's got a heart of gold. He's got a good relationship with his lieutenant,
Oh yeah,
Chewbacca.
Is that does he have a title? The Wookiee has a title?
I don't think they're that formal. They're smugglers. So
that's what's so great about them. It's not a monogamous relationship. Nothing formal, no labels, please.
Now you're bringing sex into this, and I know, I didn't.
What can I do? It gets lonely, especially when if you're not even able to travel by light speed, as we find out in the next iteration. I mean, a lot of time.
What do you think of the Mos Eisley Cantina? Their wretched hive of scum and villainy.
First off, I want to say something, and this is one of my prouder moments. For my personal Instagram, I did a Gordon Ramsay visiting fake restaurants from pop culture.
Excellent.
And he does say, in my version of Gordon Ramsay, says, a wretched hive of scum and villain. Well, you're half right. And he has like a scum on his fingers from the walk-in fridge. I'm very proud
good
of that.
Damon's version of of Gordon Ramsay.
But I do I like that. I mean, first off, I feel like it could have been a little dingier. Anytime you walk into a bar in the middle of the day, it's going to take a little bit of the mystique away.
Yeah.
Also, a bar with a live jazz band doesn't seem as threatening as
also playing
another, and like a dingier bar.
Yeah, they're not playing dirty down low blues or anything.
It's a bop.
Yeah, they're going full. Yeah, it is a bop. The Cantina band's like.
I was reminded that Liz Lemon wrote lyrics to this when she was a kid. And she sings them at one point. It's very charming. Yeah, I like this is an important role in many a movie of, you're not in Kansas anymore type scene.
You're going to get accosted by a Balchinian at some point.
Of course.
Yeah.
I guess the other funny thing about that character who's like, I don't like you either, is that he's a doctor according to the Kenner Toys line. He has a doctorate. So show some fucking respect for one.
He gets killed and the other guy gets his arm chopped off. It's not clear what happens.
Yeah, the fight choreography isn't as tight as it gets when Liam Neeson is involved. Alec Guinness is probably like, look, I will stand perfectly still and I will wave your stick around and then you will pay me. Thank you. But I guess the good doctor dies and that poor lizard man loses,
why is that so funny to me?
Loses an arm.
This guy just rabble.
Doctors can be criminals. Again, Silence of the Lambs.
True. Thank you for citing another fictional example.
What else about
Dr. Giggles? You could have gone Dr. Giggles.
But yeah, this is an important role. Like you see it in Westerns a lot. In fact, I mean, like Han Solo's character in a Western, like, the guy you sort of meet at the saloon. I think about Aragorn and Bree, although Bree is a lot more shadier in the movies than it is in the books. But that vibe is also
Classic.
In that movie.
Yeah.
Sure. Although I think the Prancing Pony looks a little creepier than the Mos Eisley Cantina.
They should have had the Cantina band do record scratch, when they came in, or like the player
and then like
stopping.
Slowly playing the piano again.
Yeah, Cantina band is a bop.
I love those guys. I do like. I mean, I was having trouble recognizing some of the aliens were changed from the original. Some were CGI now. Whatever. I also think it's a little bit undercut because a lot of the additions in Mos Eisley while they're driving through the streets are very like wacky.
Yeah.
It makes Mos Eisley look less threatening and more wacky. Like a lot of Jawas on beasts of burden that they cannot ride, being swung around by the reins. It's just a lot sillier and distracting. And that's one of the things. I mean, this is cyber ink has been spilled on this, but there's a scene where Alec Guinness does the force hypnosis or whatever
droid you're looking for.
And they've put so much stuff in. There's like a robot flying in the background. I'm like, not everything has to have something in it. We've got a fucking space wizard and a cloned army trooper. Like, we're good. Just let the scene play out. You're distracting me from something that's actually important, which is that this space wizard can fucking control people's minds.
When I get the impression, I never read up on Lucas's intent with this specific thing, but like, he's trying to make it more of a bustling, because it was kind of empty. My thought is like, it's a desert. They're inside because it's daytime. Like,
yeah, because the sun's out. The two suns.
And
do you think there's a time when the first sun's gone down and you got like 20 minutes of like 70-degree weather?
Yeah.
And then it's and then it's nighttime and it's freezing out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had no way of turning that into a joke in my mind.
Yeah, I see what he means, but I think it's a little bit... I remember when I was a kid, when I would draw in class when I was bored, which was often, I would, draw a one-panel cartoon that was funny on its own, but then because I was still bored, I would just keep adding stuff to the background.
Right.
And keep adding little jokes in the background until, I would show the person sitting in front of me and they're like, what is this?
I don't understand.
And I'm like, it looks like the ravings of a madman because I just kept drawing shit in the background and I've distracted from the thing that is supposed to be, your main point of focus. And I feel like maybe that's what's happened with George Lucas here is, he knows that this scene is important, but he's forgotten like how it plays in the movie because he's replayed it in his head so often that he forgets like how it's intended to be played for a first-time viewer, and he just keeps adding robots and Jawas in the background, whatever the bantha things.
It's like the
overplayed on the bantha things. Too many banthas.
Yeah, they lose their impact. I've always said that about banthas,
and they're ugly, and they do not blend into the background. They always look like PS2 figures.
Yeah,
just sitting in the foreground.
Voice, the way he restructures Mos Eisley is like it's like the Jared Leto's Joker tattoos, just like, okay, you overdid it a little bit. The first one, the second one, okay, fifth one, sure.
He's already a man with green hair and makeup.
Yeah.
So remember that. Don't be blind to that just because you're used to the character at this point.
I want to talk about you mentioned your favorite character, Leia's
English accent.
My favorite character is the TIE Fighter sound effect. I just love it.
I did learn from Joseph Kim that stands for twin ion engine.
Oh. So
the engine runs on ions, and that's why they're screaming all the time.
Okay.
That's how they talk because they're, the engines are on opposite wings. So
because
the ions yell.
The ions
the ions have to
They're so far apart. They need,
And they're speaking in their twin language.
Woot do you think, Dooman?
I do like the TIE Fighter sounds. I like the ship designs in general. I'm not usually a ship, but I think they look good. I also love the running joke. You see the Millennium Falcon, which is a very unique silhouette for a ship.
Yeah.
And it looks cool. And I love that everyone's like, this hunk of junk.
Yeah. And it has the mechanics of the old fighters where they're like, their whole bodies in the chair move when they're using the machine guns.
Feels like a bad way to run. I like when they're in that that fight firefight near the end after they escape from the Death Star. I'm like, is this how you want to run a ship? Because he has to like leave and go down a mall hallway just to get to the shooting part of the machine. I'm like, just put that right next to you, buddy. You don't need to be running past the Chess King just to get to the firing range.
I'm not sure that this ship was designed for a 2-man crew.
Oh, you think they stole it?
Oh, no.
Oh, wait, they won it, right? They won it from what's his name?
Yeah, that's right.
Sexy cape wearer.
Other sexy. You were talking about Darth Vader. There are
a lot of cape wearers.
I want to let you know that I learned that obviously this is true, but the trash monster has not only like a species name, but that character has a name.
Oh, good. And what is that name and species name?
I'm probably going to say this wrong. It's like a Dianoga or a Dianoga is the species, and the character's name is Omi.
Omi, O-M-I?
Mm-hmm. Yes. But they're like...
And why does he have a name?
That I cannot answer. But they're
Who
like...
named him?
Squid-like characters that, they feed on what you would find in the trash, so like decomposing things. And they ended up... They made their home in freighters and therefore like propagated throughout the galaxy because...
I was going to say, like, I didn't know... Was he placed there, or did he get sneak his way there?
It's similar like a rat situation where they get on the ship and then they go across.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's other in my head, I was like, well, maybe they are good at digesting this garbage, and the Empire breeds them to put them in these trash compactors.
No, that's your short
Are you compacting it, or are you letting the guy eat it? Like, what are we doing here?
Well,
and what does the squid thing look like? Does it how does it get out of the way of the video game?
I think they have like much like squid or octopi, they can like squeeze through things. I think I made that up. I don't know if that's true.
Can you give me that species name again?
Dianoga.
Oh, Diaog. Okay, why can't I spell?
I don't know.
There is a rock band that goes by the same name. Good news.
Nice. It also isn't that one of the bad guys in Zelda too at some point?
I can't. I want to say no, but there's a good chance yes.
You know that if you fought him in Zelda, you know exactly what to do because he's got that one eye on a stalk.
Shoot him in the eye.
You got to shoot him in the eye with your bow.
You probably got arrows in the dungeon where you have to fight him, and you need to shoot him in the eye.
Shoot him.
Oh, I you know what? I forgot to mention during that boardroom scene where that guy insults a coworker's religion and the coworker strangles him, and it's referred to as bickering. There's also that other guy that made me say aloud, "Don't cut your own bangs. I don't care how sad you are, but don't do it." He has like my hairline. He's like, I think this will trick them if I just sort of cut a moon pie shape with my bangs. I wanted to say, I also like when we get to the Death Star. I love the reveal of the Death Star. The Death Star is cool.
It is cool.
The Death Star is also pretty much only cool in this one. I do kind of like the deconstructed Death Star, but it's kind of like nerds are like, well, that one's 3 times bigger. I'm like, it's hard to tell because, it's an object floating in space.
Just a big ball in space.
It's not as big of a reveal.
Also,
and then the sequels come out and they're like, this one's even bigger. I'm like, it doesn't work like this. It doesn't matter.
And like, there is not really bigger than blowing up a planet. Like, what does that mean?
This one blows up 5 planets. It's still not as cool.
Not as cool. If you blew up the galaxy, I guess that would be cool, but that's kind of like, you're in the galaxy. So what are we talking about here?
It's like those billionaires who are like, well, we can keep polluting the planet because we've got a plan. I'm like, no, you don't. This is it. We're all here. So take that fake version of the Empire that you were talking about.
Do you want to talk about Alec Guinness in more detail? You mentioned
Alec Guinness, genuine class. Yeah. I love him. I love also the behind the scenes stories of him fucking hating being in this movie.
Yeah.
And, kids would come up to him and get his signature and he's like, watch something else of mine. But yeah, I think he does a good job. He looks a little weary in this. It is funny to think like the modern iteration of Jedis, jumping up from standing position, 20 feet in the air, doing flips and shit and riding on the back of weird fucking horse monsters like Ewan McGregor does in one of them. And then seeing Alec Guinness, who's just like exhausted.
Yeah.
Absolutely exhausted.
Just by existing.
But no, I think he came to do what he did what he came to do, which was add some gravitas to this deranged space western that we've created. And he does that. I think he's charming. He's got his little wig on, which I love. Boop. This Sean Connery school of wigs. Of course I am. He's me. I love that. I love that he's talking. Like, who are you Have you not talked to a person in a while?
He probably hasn't.
That's true. He's like me coming out of COVID. Like, is this how he's me?
I give you money, you give me restaurant food.
I give you money. I know. Have to cook.
I like that. I'm also holding a pen. I have no notes here. I just have a pen.
Well, it does make you look very serious.
Yeah, it makes me. I can do my famous
Mike Wallace over here.
Do my famous Dennis Miller sign off, which we haven't
Jon
covered.
Stewart does that too. He does the weird.
Yeah, everybody loves Dennis Miller.
Oh my God, they both supported the Iraq War. That's not true.
Yeah,
yes, buddy.
Alec Guinness is like I know he's treasured. He's not like dragging the movie down, but he's not particularly compelling. I do like his character in this movie is interesting. It is kind of weird that he has all this knowledge, and it seems like they were not that far away from each other. Like he lives in the desert by himself, but he has all this knowledge, and he seems like, oh, I've been waiting for you. And that's not what he says, but like it's like,
come by. I'm just sitting here running the moisture evaporators left, right, and center. Why don't you just stop by and get some tea?
I don't know if it was just that, like, it seemed, Luke was ready to hear it because he's adventuring out in the desert or something. I don't really know. It was a little bit. I don't need too much more detail.
It doesn't feel like a well-oiled machine. You're absolutely. Is he there to keep an eye over Luke? Is that the idea? Because we couldn't change his last name. Is the idea that
maybe they don't
like Tatooine? I mean, I don't know. Like, what, he doesn't seem that far away from him. He's a day's ride from him. But and Luke seems to be vaguely aware of him, but it doesn't feel like they've ever talked before. So maybe they just know of old Ben Kenobi. But yeah, it seems weird. And then Ben Kenobi is like, oh, hey, let's come with me to Alderaan and I'll teach you about my religion on the 20-minute ride over. And I'll teach you how to fight a robot sphere.
And he's like,
floats around.
I can't leave this planet I live on. And he's like, what the fuck, kid?
He's like, what if your guardians are dead? And he's like, I'm in.
What if I have them killed secretly? Well, then I can go.
Yeah, I mean, I think he does his job. Like, there's a lot been written of the Campbell, hero with 1,000 faces. He is the mage that comes along to, spur the hero into action. And then you have to leave the mage at one point, and they do. He dies in the Death Star, which could also be the trip to the underworld if you're following the hero's story.
Okay.
Where they retrieve a token or a person. Leia being that person.
The hierarchy of need? Is that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm. And then
self-actualization.
You need, shelter. You want to start with shelter.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the call to adventure. Food. Journey to the underworld.
And then vegetables is the biggest one at the bottom.
Internet connection, maybe?
And for some reason, dairy is a huge chunk of the triangle. I'm like, guys.
And you get really excited when you see the fats one, but like it's not like what you're thinking. And it's the smallest part of the pyramid, guys. Yeah. And they added the steps with the guy walking up it, so you don't forget you need to get exercise.
Do you have you ever kind of fantasized about having a lightsaber or having battles?
I've never done the
wow.
I liked having paper towel rolls to hit people with. And one time me and Jason got one of those old spools from a construction site, that they would have wire around. We were able to roll that into our backyard and we played restaurant. So to answer your question, no.
I just wasn't into Star Wars specifically enough, but I loved having sword type things. So this all checks out. Like I would get there at the county fair, they had the game, the cane, where you could throw the ring. And if you got it around a cane, you get the cane. It was just like a little wooden cane with a little handle. Loved those.
What do you mean? Like
like a walking cane. It wasn't like fancy. They were like made of, balsa wood or whatever.
Was there another booth where you could get like a straw boater and then you can do a little show for your family?
Yeah. No, not like the hooked cane. They were like, just had a little handle at the top.
Oh, like a John Hammond cane more than a bamboo cane.
Yes. And you
Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime girl.
We were, expressly told not to use them as weapons, against your cousin. And so I got the cane taken away many times as a child because we would always be like, wow, like in Dumb and Dumber. That was us.
I am reminded that I don't know if it's ever used in the series, but I remember my action figure of Splinter. His cane came apart and there was a sword inside his cane. And I remember loving that idea that you could have a sword inside.
Seems like more of a penguin thing than a Splinter thing, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to the lore of either. I just remember that's when I learned that canes can have swords in them.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
Well, I gotta
now
have
I just
that.
need to get a knee injury and then I'm all set. I need a knee injury and a nemesis and I'm good.
And that's sad.
It's over for you bitches.
By the time most of us get old enough to need the cane, we don't want the cane anymore. We just want the good
old
knees.
Enough, we're too friendly. We have too much of a community built around us for nemesis.
Where could he be?
Where could he be?
I could let that line reading pass once. But
is that
twice
about R2 or is that someone else later?
Yeah, he's trying to get a hold of 3PO while they're being crushed.
3PO! 3PO! Where could he be? Yes, that's absolutely correct.
We get a lot of
with
like
Diagona.
Dianoga.
That's the pasta where it's shaped like an ear?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's got the... No, that's rotini. Never mind. They're rotini.
I have a question about Jawas.
Okay.
I know we're bouncing all over the fucking place, but are Jawas, do their eyes light up naturally, or are they wearing masks like the sand people?
I don't think you're allowed to say sand people.
I didn't like it when anyone said sand people in this. I was like, surely they've got another name. Guys, I will say one that I was reminded with the sand people and kind of with the Jawas that like, we don't got the budget yet for all these tricks.
Yeah.
And the Jawas just like little people with, hoods and then, goggles that light up. The sand people, is that their face?
Tusken Raiders.
You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. But that still seems like the whole race are raiders?
That's not their name for themselves, surely, right?
What do they call themselves? Let's start there. Oh, you haven't had a conversation with them. Interesting.
Is
that their face or are they wearing a mask? That can't be their face.
I feel like we learned...
Although if it is their face, I apologize. I need to take accountability. I'm going to release also a notes app apology to the Tuscan people's community. I love Tuscany this time of year, though.
Yeah, on our honeymoon, we went.
Why
on
do you
Tuscany
need to raid anything? It's beautiful.
Just raid the wine cellar, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Go to Assisi and have some beautiful Diagna and by the seaside.
We do get to see Alec Guinness's
penis.
Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
Alec Guinness.
You thought it was Alex Guinness?
I just said Alan Guinness and then was like, that's not right.
It's short for Alexander.
His finishing move in the fight against Darth Vader, which is a wry smile and a sheathing of his weapon. Because he becomes a ghost who could, like, he's like, I accept this because me.
Wouldn't you rather just live?
I remember getting upset about this as a kid not because he died. I mean, yes, because he dies, but also because it's like, it's so lame and also doesn't, the whole point of the fighting was that it was allowing them to escape, but then he dies just like they're still getting on the ship because Luke sees it. I'm like, it would have made sense if you had done that later, like 5 minutes later, 2 minutes later after they had escaped. Because your whole point was you have this powerful powerful Sith that you're fighting who can stop them with his force. Like later.
Maybe.
But it's like
when he's cooler in the movies we made more recently.
Yeah.
He's just like a god among men suddenly.
I remember being confused by that because it was like, it's
absolutely confusing.
Their
fight is also not very inspiring.
No.
It does kind of look like two kids with paper towel rolls. But
You can rehearse this, guys.
Nah. We don't have fight coordinators yet. Yeah, it is funny to watch this after the fact that, Jedis are so much more superpowered than ever before. Oh my God. We had fried rice. It is funny to watch this now, where in more recent iterations, Jedis are superheroes jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
And to watch, just David Prowse and Alec Guinness kind of like smack at each other lightly with their plastic swords. It isn't as inspiring, but hey, maybe there's another DVD release around the corner where we'll get them kicking ass and just flipping all over the place.
Put them in fast motion. I'm sure that'll help.
Actually, now that I said that out loud, I think there is a fan edit of this where they added a bunch of tricks to make them much more
I feel
modern
like
Jedi-ish.
Yeah. I didn't
and
like
it's kind of like, this is exhausting.
This is actually worse.
Please let franchises die.
I have two more things I want to talk about that are very specific.
Yeah, good. Is it how specific on the scale of don't cut your own bangs, sir, when I'm making fun of that man?
It is.
Or the cheekbones of Peter Cushing.
I'm going to talk about Porkins, the
rude.
The large man, played by William Hootkins.
I believe, isn't he he's one of the U.S. government guys who come to Dr. Jones to talk about the Ark.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was
top
men. But the actor, William Hootkins, kind of like accepted that he was like known as like big guy who's in things. And I just like that there's a whole like little history of Porkins out there. This is an example of what's really fun about the Star Wars obsession of kind of the world at large. I like it when people get really nerdy about something in a fun way, or they're like, I'm going to write a backstory for this character just because I like see something in him that I think is interesting. It's kind of like it's actually a weird moment in this where you're like, Porkins, no, like, or just like, what? Why do you call him? Why is his name
guys?
Porkins? But then you kind of turn it around for the movie. You like do some extra work to like help the movie. You're like, I'll give him a little bit of backstory. And I think that's nice. And then also
it was Porkenberg when he arrived.
Yeah,
at Moon Ellis Island. Now that you say that, I do think it's weird. The other characters, what, Faggy Mustache? That seems weird. Corporal Faggy Mustache, rude.
But
Didn't catch it until now.
He was Faggy Beardberg when he arrived. So similarly,
it's insulting to my people, but I do want to assimilate here in space New York.
There's also the controversy of Chewie not getting a medal at the end.
Absolutely. Don't worry, they fixed it later.
I read up about that because I was like, it does feel weird, not because he doesn't get a medal, but because he's standing there and doesn't get a medal.
True.
Because like a lot of people were involved in this that, deserve medals of different, I don't know.
And some of them were involved in all the practices, Han. They all did, runs and, were in on the planning.
Talked about, they did the press.
They didn't just come in at the last minute screaming like a bat out of hell.
But the sort of in-universe justification is that these were medals for the actual destruction of the Death Star, which was like, Luke is the only surviving member of his squad, and then Han helps execute it at the end. And Chewie was just like, he was there too. He was on the ship with Han, so he doesn't get one because he wasn't piloting the ship.
Isn't he though? Isn't he also the co-pilot of the ship? Yeah.
So the in-universe justification is like, oh no, Han and Luke were actually responsible for it, and Chewie was to the destruction of the Death Star. But I thought that was really weird because, like, why is he standing there? It's just a weird direction.
Why'd you bring him up here?
Yeah, you brought it up, George.
Maybe it's like, when you win an Oscar and all the producers come up, the best picture
he just
winner.
Walks up.
They get to maybe hold, one person can hold the Oscar, but, everyone else. And that's like Chewie doesn't get to give a speech, though, either. Like, only the two executive producers give speeches.
And they're like, oh, actually, this is supposed to go to Moonlight. We messed it up. These medals were meant for Moonlight.
This was supposed to go to Disney's Black Hole. Sorry about that. Yeah, that is a weird thing. It's also, you reminded me that they give him a medal in the end of one of the other ones, and it's like, I feel like that's the most incriminating thing of our history, or our current history, of just like bringing on these zombie franchises and keeping them going. And a lot of times these newer versions, like, no, we have to right the wrongs of the other ones. And what I read a really good piece, probably on Slate, because I'm a liberal, champagne liberal. But it was about how, like, executives misinterpret nerds picking apart their own favorite movies.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't say these things about Chewie not getting a medal because we hate Star Wars.
Yeah.
You don't have to fix this problem. You don't have to fix the parsecs thing, or why does the Death Star have such a glaring flaw. You don't have to fix these problems. These aren't actually problems. We're showing our love for these movies by nitpicking these tiny things that you wouldn't notice unless you watched them 15 times.
Right.
So just fuck off. I don't need a Lord of the Rings, sequel that explains why they didn't fly the eagles to Mordor. Please don't. And I know there's someone who's listening like, I bet we can do that. What if we do a whole series on what the eagles were doing the entire time? No, leave me alone.
What if we cut to when the eagles were little eaglets and they're very sad because their parents died? No, Disney, stop it.
Stop it. Yeah, I do like that moment. It is funny they bring him up there and he doesn't get anything. But he does get to yell, which is nice.
That is.
Can you imagine a universe? Well, I didn't get to give a speech at the Oscars, so I'm just going to go.
He's actually pissed. That's why he's yelling.
I don't think I have anything worthwhile to say.
Let's go to the verdict.
Oh, I do have one last thing.
Shit.
Sorry. When Luke gets back after destroying the Death Star and they're pulling down R2-D2 and he's all busted up and smoking. And 3PO, of course, is like, R2, you must pull through. If any of my circuits could be of use, please take them. And I was like, just say you love him, 3PO.
Yeah.
Just say it. But, he's got that stiff upper lip stuff.
Yeah.
Not when they're alone, if you know what I mean. No, he really does have, he has both a stiff upper lip and a lower lip. It's just kind of like a little slit.
Yeah. Let's go to
Although, he's got all those little things that can fit through holes, R2.
Okay. True. All right.
I'll draw something up and send it over to you.
This is us going to the verdict. Ready?
Yeah.
Damon.
DJ.
No.
You got me.
I got you.
You got me. Thank you, DJ. This movie, Star Wars, I believe it was called.
Mm-hmm.
Your inner child's not an idiot.
What?
Yeah, I know. I do enjoy this movie. It is fun to watch. I have a weird relationship, especially as they make more and more of this crap, that, it feels very exhausting. But returning to the original, I understand why, we can't let go of this stuff. It sucks you in almost immediately. It's just a well-made popcorn film. It's fun. You immediately pick up on its themes, but, it's well, executed. It's well acted, even if the writing, I'd like to see what's going on at Tashi Station, which I believe is a Disney Plus series that's coming out.
Yep.
Where were those power converters?
It's all about the manager of the power converter store.
Luke told me to stay open another 15 minutes. He knows how it freezes the minute the suns go down. But yeah, I mean, I hate to be a basic bitch, but yeah, it's a fun movie and it's enjoyable. I like its 3-act structure. We're in Tatooine, then we're on the Death Star, then we're fighting the Death Star. It's just well done. This George Lucas fella knows what he's doing. DJ, what do you think about Star Wars? Straight white man?
Do you have any nominees?
So thankful that you asked me. Well, I know you're going to have to give it to my faggy prince, C-3PO.
Can we give it to both? That is my proposal.
Oh, wow.
The droids.
Yeah. I'll give it to both of them.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm going to put the Catherine O'Hara icon closer to C-3PO.
Okay. allowed.
Absolutely, yeah. Let me hold on. COH.
This is, of course, for the uninitiated. This is our Catherine O'Hara Memorial Secret MVP Award.
Absolutely. And what about the Sally Field Best Outstanding Scene Award? I found out it's not Best Scene; it's Outstanding Scene by my own notations.
Okay. Well, if this is your portion. I have not given my verdict yet. Do you?
Oh, right.
Mine is. I can give you mine if you need one.
Well, somebody's got to save our skins. What a dream.
That's pretty good.
accent.
That's kind
I
of the
did
same
laugh-
scene.
I will say, I laughed at him, like we talked about with Lacey, how are you?
Yes.
And I also laughed at Harrison Ford, saying anything's better than sneaking around here. And then like 5 minutes later being like, the old man said for us to stay here.
Yeah.
So I feel like that Death Star scene is really fun.
I was going to suggest I'm good. How are you? Like that scene too. So
Yeah.
let's do it.
Let's do Harrison Ford.
And you also get Leia being a badass, which is
Well, somebody's got to save our skins.
a little short for a stormtrooper.
I mean, they are clones. And I feel like if you just saw like thousands of men who are 5'9", and then all of a sudden a guy who's 5'7" comes in and you're like, what the fuck's this guy's deal?
Something's wrong.
Something.
Now, I don't think a lot of straight white men of a certain age have said this before, but I like Star Wars. I think Your Inner Child is not an idiot. I think this is a good movie. It sucks you in immediately. The opening crawl, it's very epic. The music, John Williams, obviously, incredible score. It did. I was also very tired when I watched this time through. I feel like the middle drags a little, and I never really noticed that specifically. It's just from like after you would get Han involved and where you leave Tatooine, and yeah, it's. I like after the rescue, and we kind of. I just was getting a little bit more like. What? When do we fight? When do we get to the fireworks factory? But I think it's great. It's a lot of fun. I think that there's plenty of, stilted scenes. There's plenty of silly things. There's plenty of things to pick on. But it's a good movie. It's fun to watch, and you can see why this was massive. It was great. It just reminds me of, this is the true nostalgia factor. Like it makes you feel like a kid. Like when I sat down to watch this yesterday, and the opening crawl comes on, I immediately was like, well, I have to make popcorn. Like it is that kind of movie where I literally paused it, made popcorn, and then picked it back up just because I was like, it just feels like a movie is supposed to feel. And then, yes, I clogged my arteries while I'm watching it. It's great. What do you think, everybody? Email us, yourinnerchildisanidiot@gmail.com. I probably should have set up a special email address for this one because we're going to get lots of letters.
Oh, yeah, because people are like, oh, you don't understand Porkins.
You could text us or leave us a voicemail, 615-576-0525. We want to thank our friend Lacey for joining us for the intro to Star Wars. You can check out her podcast, Nerdy and Nice, and the Resistance broadcast. Thank you very much for being here, lending your expertise. We also want to thank our patrons for supporting the show. We want to thank Just Cuz,
Lindsay Halik,
Larissa Maestro,
Travis Vance,
the Elusive fan Gromkin,
Little Miss Chicken Nugget,
the supreme ruler of this podcast,
Josh Frigo,
T. Smith,
Jeremy Powlen,
Lindsay Nell,
Bill Haynes,
the Zesty,
Heather Tuggle,
the Hands of Fate,
Particle Man,
Dr. Balcom's Heaving Star Wars,
Damon's Australian Unique Scene,
His Honor the Mayor,
Tommy Boy is my favorite movie,
Zachary Hartley,
Jackson has an unhealthy obsession with me,
Jody Passanisi,
Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Oh, we don't talk about Star Trek here. Shit
right.
on the Cartouche,
Karen Kurd,
Jonathon Day,
Beth Surmont,
David Mort,
and of course, Caroline Amberson.
Thank you all very much for supporting the show. If you want to support like them, patreon.com/Your Inner Child is an Idiot. Do you want to do your favorite noise? Oh, that's good.
I like it when they hit. I do like the crackle.
Sizzle.
Seems like not the best way to do things, though.
It immediately cauterizes wounds. What are you talking about?
That is nice. That way, that doctor isn't bleeding out all over the cantina.
He was mad, but he was like,
I respect him.